After my daughter's heartbreaking loss, I discovered $35 million her abandoned father demanded it back. The world had collapsed in a rift of pain that Sarah never anticipated. Just 5 weeks after her daughter Emma's diagnosis, laughter had been replaced with silence, the vibrant spark of her life extinguished. The echoes of her sweet voice, once vibrant and playful, now haunted the corners of their small apartment in Cedar Grove. Alone and cradling Emma's favorite teddy bear, Sarah was suffocated by grief and guilt. How was she to navigate a life stripped of her greatest joy? Just when the memories threatened to drown her, she stumbled upon an old envelope wedged between the pages of a faded family photo album. Inside, an inheritance lay dormant, $35 million, untouched, buried under the weight of scandal and shame. It was a flicker of light piercing her darkness. Everything that had once felt impossible now danced before her. What if she could build a legacy for Emma? A foundation to honor her short-lived brilliance? But as Sarah began to explore what this wealth could offer, doom hovered over her. Out of nowhere, her estranged father, a shadow from her past, re-emerged with demands laced in entitlement. He claimed the inheritance was his by right, thrusting all the memories of his abandonment upon her like a dirty blanket. How could the man who had vanished from her life dare to claim ownership over a fortune that belonged to Emma's memory? Crushed beneath the weight of his audacity and the remnants of her own buried pain, she grappled with the swirling doubts. Could she really fight him? Did she have the strength to confront the man who had denied her the affection of a father in the years she had needed it most? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. David, a university professor she met while searching for insight into her family's twisted past, became an unexpected ally. He listened, the kind of attentive listener she had yearned for in the months leading up to Emma's loss. Stripped of pretense, she shared her heartache, the burden of grief, and the treachery of her paternal heritage. He offered expertise that enveloped her in a cocoon of understanding. Yet, with each passing conversation, Sarah felt the weight of her father's reappearance grow heavier. Memories of brutal moments tangled with sensations of warmth from her budding friendship with David, and the psychological tug-of-war forced her to confront the roots of her despair. The conflict raged within her, mirrored in the chaotic thoughts racing through her mind. Could she find peace in vengeance, in solidifying her daughter's legacy while reclaiming her identity? Or would her father's power consume her will to fight? Every visit felt like walking a tightrope, teetering between her fragility and a stirring anger. One moment she could almost see a way forward, but then the fear would ricochet back, paralyzing her. As Sarah stood at the brink of a decision, the will to protect her daughter's memory versus the need to confront the man who had deprived her of a father, it became clear that she had to make a choice. But which path would lead to her salvation, and which would only lead to more heartbreak? The question loomed above her like a specter, waiting to snatch away whatever she considered strength. As day turned into night, she felt isolation creep in, tightening like a noose, leaving her longing for the comfort of her lost child. Would she rise to reclaim what was hers, or would she let memories of a past life dictate her future? The answer was an aching mystery waiting to unravel. In the hazy light of the morning, the whispers of unresolved emotions echoed in Sarah's mind. The specter of her father, whom she had long tried to purge from her consciousness, clung to her thoughts like a persistent fog. The weight of the inheritance hung heavy on her shoulders, a dual-edged sword that could reshape her existence but came intertwined with the shadows of her past. David arrived at the small cafe where they often met. He carried a stack of books, a collection of legal texts that could either shatter her already fragile resolve or bolster her confidence. As he sat across from her, a thoughtful expression on his face, Sarah felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Hope. Have you given any thought to what we discussed? He asked carefully, his voice a soothing presence in her tumultuous sea of thoughts. She nodded, but her heart raced with uncertainty. I want to create a foundation for Emma, she admitted, her voice scarcely above a whisper. But my father, he insists it's his. I don't know how to fight him. David leaned forward, crossing his arms. You don't just have to fight him. You can outsmart him. He may think he has a claim, but legally he lacks the moral authority you possess. This money belongs to you and to Emma's legacy. His confidence was infectious, but the walls Sarah had built around her heart were formidable. I feel so small, David. I've spent a lifetime dodging conflict. I don't know if I can face him, let alone win. David's eyes shone with sincerity as he leaned back, allowing her words to sink in. You've faced more than anyone should bear. And now you have this opportunity not just to honor Emma, but to reclaim your own story from him. You already have the strength, Sarah. You just need to unleash it. The gears began to turn in Sarah's mind. David's words struck a chord, awakening parts of her that had laid dormant in the wake of her daughter's loss. She had always been caught in the shadows of others' choices, her father's abandonment, society's expectations, and her own grief. But in that moment she envisioned a new narrative, one where she was the author of her own fate. Reflecting deeper, a memory stirred. Emma's laughter, her dreams of making a difference in the world. Those dreams must not die with her. If I become an advocate for children's health, we could bring real change. Emma's story could inspire others. The thought sent a shiver through her spine as a mixture of fear and determination surged within. As they continued their conversation, strategies began to form. Legal avenues to explore, research on child health foundations, potential allies in the community, all converging to fuel her resolve. Each idea sharpened her focus, illuminating the path ahead. But as the sun dipped low in the sky, the shadows of her father loomed larger than ever. The reality of confrontation loomed large, an inevitability she could no longer ignore. The time had come for her to face the man who had intertwined himself with her anguish. Would she risk everything to protect Emma's legacy from the very man who had once caused her so much pain? With every heartbeat, Sarah's determination solidified. She wasn't merely fighting for a sum of money. She was battling for her identity, her daughter's memory, and the life Emma would have wanted. As the evening darkness settled, the weight of her decision pressed against her chest, and an urgency pulsed through her veins. The moment of truth was approaching, and with it came a gripping thought: what if her father's claim was based on secrets she had yet to uncover? In the depths of her heart, she knew she had to unearth the truth before their clash. Tomorrow, she would begin seeking the answers that had eluded her for so long. But as she locked eyes with David, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever came next, she would not face it alone. And that knowledge began to rekindle the last flicker of her lost joy. Yet deep down, the question lingered: what dark revelations awaited as Sarah peeled back the layers of her family's history? She was on the brink of unraveling secrets that might change everything. The morning sun broke through the gray clouds, casting a hopeful light over Sarah's small, cluttered home office. She sank into her chair, the piles of documents strewn across her desk reflecting the chaos of her emotions. With a sense of urgency igniting her resolve, she began sorting through papers related to her father's will and her own budding ideas for the foundation. Each paper, each detail pulled at the threads of her past, unraveling the tightly bound emotions woven into her journey. As she skimmed the legal jargon of her father's estate, doubt tried to creep back in. Was it too late to claim what was rightfully hers? Could she truly fight this battle she felt woefully unprepared for? Yet, another side of her whispered in opposition, championed by the memory of Emma. Every legal phrase she read brought to mind her daughter's dreams, her infectious laughter, and her relentless spirit. Focus on Emma, Sarah muttered to herself. This isn't just about him. She made a decision to find a way to reclaim her identity through the advocacy she had envisioned. The foundation wouldn't just honor Emma's memory. It would stand as a testament to her strength and determination. Sarah pulled out a blank notepad, the crisp pages ready to be filled with ideas. Her pen danced across the paper, jotting down each thought that emerged. Prioritize children's health. Research existing foundations for inspiration. Seek community alliances. Build a platform that amplifies every child's voice, especially those like Emma's. The words flowed like a river of empowerment. Time slipped away as her ideas crystallized into an outline. The thrill of purpose surged within her as the chaos of her life began to shift into something more organized and meaningful. She was no longer just a daughter quaking in the shadow of her estranged father. She was a mother on a mission. Determined, she resolved to dictate the tone of her foundation. It would not merely serve as a receiver of funds, but as an advocate for children's rights and health, educating parents and communities about the importance of access to care. But amidst the exhilaration, the lurking terror that stemmed from her father's impending confrontation loomed large. Suddenly her phone buzzed on the desk, jolting her from her reverie. A message from David lit the screen. "Thinking of you. Ready to plan our next moves?" His unwavering support tethered her to the present, guiding her once again to the cusp of her transformation. "Grateful," she typed back, sharing her ideas and how she envisioned their next meeting would unfold. As they exchanged thoughts, it became apparent they needed to strategize a full approach, not just to the foundation but also to the looming confrontation with her father. As evening approached, a sense of anxiety washed over her. What did her father know that she didn't? What scars lay hidden, waiting to be unearthed? She realized she needed to confront not only him but also the demons of her shared past. The next morning promised not just the continuation of her plans, but a commitment to uncovering the truth. She would seek answers, dive into the family history and untangle the threads of deception that had wrapped around her life for too long. The stakes were high but resistance felt futile. By the time Sarah fell into bed, her mind raced with the impending revelation of her family secrets. She was determined, but the reality of facing her father consumed her thoughts. Would the truth strengthen her resolve or shatter the fragile foundation she was building? With her heart pounding and questions echoing in her mind, she closed her eyes, knowing she would soon step into the unknown. Yet, deep within, a fresh uncertainty swirled a single thought. Would discovering her family's hidden truths empower her cause, or would it leave her more exposed than ever? With the dawn bringing both opportunity and confrontation, Sarah prepared to unmask the dark legacy of her father. As the first light of dawn crept through the thin curtains, Sarah lay awake, the weight of her impending confrontation looming large over her. The stillness of her home was pierced only by the frenetic beat of her heart. She had emerged from the density of grief into uncharted territory, yet doubt and fear clung to her like a fog. Today was the day she would face not just her father, but the ghosts of her childhood that had shaped her into the woman she was. She pushed herself up from the bed, driven by an urgency to craft her own narrative. With every step, determination fluttered in her chest. Today, every decision would be crucial, and each step needed to unfold with purpose. Recalling the vision for her foundation tightened the cords of her resolve. It was more than a tribute to Emma, it was a movement waiting to be ignited. In her home office, she started to organize her notes, her fingers brushing against the papers like lost puzzle pieces. The vision board she had worked on now adorned her wall like a patchwork quilt, each colorful note a testament to her dreams. But the quiet of the room betrayed the storm brewing in her mind. Was this dream too ambitious? Would she falter when faced with her father's intimidating presence? She grabbed her phone to check for messages, and an unfamiliar pang of anxiety jabbed her. Would David reassure her as he always did? Or was their bond about to be tested by the revelation of hidden family secrets? Gritting her teeth against her uncertainty, she decided to set some ground rules for their meeting. When she arrived at the cafe for their scheduled meetup, she felt the rush of nerves swelling in her gut. David sat at their usual corner table, his expression open and encouraging, and Sarah knew she needed to strip away her fears and embrace the path forward. Today is pivotal, she reminded herself as she took a seat across from him. Ready to dive in? David asked, a hint of affection flaring in his eyes. I'm worried, she admitted, finding her voice wavering. What if I find out something that breaks what little I have left? David leaned forward, his demeanor serious yet warm. You'll find allies in the truth, Sarah. Remember that those who stand by your side are in this with you. She nodded, absorbing his words, which felt like a balm to her troubled thoughts. They began to map out strategies not just for the foundation, but also how to approach her father without losing herself in the chaos. With each plan they formulated, a flicker of empowerment ignited within her. Lay out your boundaries with him, David suggested. What are you willing to accept and what won't you tolerate? You're not just his daughter today, you're a mother and advocate. His insights illuminated her intentions. Sarah felt a surge of clarity and purpose wash over her. As they pored over plans for the foundation, she promised herself that even if the confrontation led to turbulence, she would remain steadfast. She outlined her personal values, her goals, and the limits she would not compromise on. When they parted ways, the air was thick with anticipation. With every step toward her father's house, she reaffirmed her mission not merely to reclaim her past, but to forge a new path for Emma's legacy and the many children who deserved a voice. As she approached the door, doubts whispered in her ear, taunting her with the possibility of betrayal. Yet, deep within her, a flicker of fierceness ignited. She was ready to face the storm, ready to fight for the truth. Standing at the threshold, she hesitated. Would she emerge from this encounter more empowered? Or would it shatter the foundation she worked so hard to build? The door stared back at her, a glaring portal to her father's world where chaos and clarity awaited her. It became clear. Today was not just about uncovering family secrets. It was about confronting herself and the woman she was destined to become. With a deep breath, Sarah raised her hand to knock, ready to embrace whatever lay on the other side. Little did she know, the revelation she was about to encounter would change everything. The door creaked open, revealing a familiar face marked by years of unresolved conflict. Sarah's father stood there, his brow furrowed with uncertainty and a hint of surprise. "Sarah," he said, his voice steeped in disbelief, as if her presence was a taunting ghost. "Can we talk?" she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt inside. The tension in her chest mounted with every heartbeat. The significance of the moment cascaded over her like a chilling wave. She stepped inside, allowing the door to shut behind her, sealing her in a world inhabited by memories both haunting and formative. She observed him, an intricate tension lining his features. The furniture felt cumulative, each piece echoing past conversations filled with sharp-edged truths. Over the years, every interaction had shaped the fabric of her resolve, tightening her determination like a noose yet slowly coaxing her toward this confrontation. He gestured toward the living room, and as they sank into the worn-out chairs that had once hosted family dinners and bitter arguments, a palpable silence enveloped them. Sarah felt her heart race as she pieced together her thoughts, determined to lead the narrative. "Dad," she began, deliberately meeting his gaze. "We need to talk about what happened with Emma." The name lingered in the air, carving a focal point for both of them. His expression faltered. "You still blame me for her death." "I blame you for not being there. For not supporting her or me," she replied, the weight of her words gliding between accusation and truth. The haunted look in his eyes suggested he might be ready to engage, perhaps even to shift from his defensive posture. "We were all still grieving," he murmured, his voice dropping as if to shield himself from her raw honesty. Yet she sensed beneath his words a deflection he had clung to for years. "Dad, this isn't about blame," she pressed, feeling the anger bubble within her, pushing against her carefully constructed boundaries. "It's about understanding why. Why you chose to distance yourself when Emma needed you the most." He hesitated, the silence heavy like a blanket drawn too tight. "I didn't know how to handle it. I thought pushing away was protecting you both." "Protecting us?" She could hardly believe her ears, her disbelief morphing into a tentative curiosity. "By abandoning us? Those choices shaped my childhood." That abandonment was its own form of pain. The realization struck her that this conversation was less about confronting him, and more about her unraveling the layers of her own trauma. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, she saw vulnerability flicker beneath the surface of his hardened facade. "Maybe I didn't want to face my failures," he confessed, the tremor in his voice exposing a depth of regret she hadn't anticipated. She took a deep breath, feeling her resolve strengthen, realizing that this wasn't solely about her father. It was about her own journey towards understanding. "I want to create something good from this pain. A foundation in Emma's name, to help other children," he interrupted, his expression tightening. "And you think that can erase what happened?" "Not erase," she clarified, her heartbeat reverberating a promise. "Transform. We can acknowledge the past, face it together, and help others in the process. This is more than just me. It's about making sure no child feels abandoned as I did." For the first time, Sarah felt the possibility of reconciliation, of crafting a path forward not bound by bitterness but stretched toward purpose. She could see the wheels turning in his mind, the walls he had built beginning to fracture under the weight of her honesty. Yet, a sharp question lingered in her mind. Would he really support her? The fear gnawed at her that his regrets might drown her ambitions. Still, she steadied herself, her voice steady and firm, determined to bring the last corner of darkness to light. "What I need from you is not sympathy, but honesty," she declared. "Can you be the father I need while I fight for Emma's legacy?" Then a glimmer of uncertainty passed across his face. She held her breath, poised for the shift that could redefine their relationship. Would he rise to the occasion, or would he step back into the shadows of his own self-doubt? And as she waited for his answer, she sensed the ground shifting beneath them. No matter his response, she knew this was her moment beyond the facade of family ties, and into the heart of her own aspirations. She was ready to step into the open, but the question remained. Could her father embrace the truth she offered, or would his past prevent them both from moving forward? The pause felt like an eternity, stretching out in the thick air between them. Sarah fought to keep her expression neutral, but her heart raced in anticipation of his decision. She had taken this bold step, unearthing the roots of her pain and inviting him into a space where healing could begin. Would he reciprocate, or was she poised at the edge of an emotional precipice? Finally, he exhaled, breaking the suffocating silence. "I want to help, Sarah." But the hesitation returned as if he were caught in the grip of his own unresolved guilt. She felt an ache for him. Her father, archetypal protector turned unwitting villain in her childhood narrative. How could they reconcile these disparate roles? But what? She challenged gently, searching for the cracks in the armor he wore, hoping for a glimmer of cooperation behind his uncertainty. "I don't know if I can face the memories or the people," he admitted, his voice shaking. "They include the worst parts of me." His words struck deep, echoing her own fear of confronting those who were part of her own story. Yet, she felt another flicker of empathy toward him. Could he move past this fear? Should she guide him while she was still grappling with her own demons? Empowered by her newfound clarity, she leaned forward slightly, her determination evident. "You don't have to do it alone. I've had to learn this the hard way. Hiding from our mistakes doesn't erase them. If we want to make a difference, we have to face them together. It's the only way to honor Emma, to truly transform the pain we've endured." His expression softened, the weight of her message sinking in like a stone dropped in still water. "How would we even start?" "By being honest, Dad. About our feelings, our failures. We can reach out to other families and help them connect. If we can show them they're not alone, maybe that's the legacy that will finally stitch together the pieces we've torn apart." He looked down at his hands, visibly strained, and she resisted the urge to rush in and cushion the impact of his feelings. This was a moment for him to confront the source of the pain, as she had dared to do. It struck her then, the skill he needed to cultivate was the very thing she had been acquiring herself. Vulnerability as strength. "Can you start with me?" she pressed. "Just tell me how you felt when you lost Emma. What was the hardest part for you?" The question hung in the air, and she could see him wrestle with the idea of sharing his truth, the flood of emotions threatening to break through barriers he had erected for so long. Yet, she sensed he was on the brink of real engagement, something they had both avoided all these years. As he fumbled for words, Sarah felt a surge of hope coursing through her. This openness could lead them to new ground, allowing them to weave a new tapestry of memories not punctuated solely by sorrow but ripe with potential for healing. "Can we really do this?" he asked, searching her eyes for affirmation. "It depends on how brave we are willing to be. I want to stand with you to forge ahead." But as determination coursed through her, a lingering doubt flicked at the edges of her thoughts. Would he falter when faced with the tangible ghosts of their past? With their fates intertwined in this fragile moment, Sarah realized this was not merely about creating a foundation for children in need. It was also a test of their will, an invitation to rise above old wounds, or risk burying the ambition within more rubble. As they sat across from each other, the weight of the past thick in the air, an unmistakable realization emerged within her. They had the chance to change not just their present, but somehow reshape their narrative as trajectory altogether. "I need to tell you something else," she stated, wrestling with her resolve. "Something I haven't shared with anyone. Before she could reveal what lay hidden under the layers of her grief, hesitation seized her. What if it challenged everything they were attempting to build? What if it pushed him away or worse, sent her spiraling back into despair? An undercurrent of anxiety roiled beneath her calm facade as she weighed her next words. The very thing that could liberate her might also threaten to fracture the delicate bond they were forging. As he looked at her, the expectation shifting in the atmosphere, she took a breath, preparing for the plunge into vulnerability that could either connect them deeper or disrupt the fragile beginnings of their reconciliation. Would this revelation bolster their shared journey? Or would it awaken new fears? The air crackled with tension as she began to speak, knowing that from this moment on, nothing would remain the same. The room felt both stifling and electric as Sarah prepared to unveil her truth. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, a reminder of the weight of the moment. What would happen once the words escaped her lips? There was no turning back. No way to unspeak the secrets held close like a treasured charm. "Dad, I've been struggling with something for years," she said, her voice a fragile thread, barely holding together. "It's not just about Emma's loss. It's also about the time I spent feeling abandoned. There was a time after her death when I couldn't discern where the grief ended and my own identity began. I felt invisible, as if my pain and suffering were somehow less important than yours." As she spoke, she observed the muscles in his face tighten, a mix of surprise and sorrow. He had always thought of himself as the primary sufferer, hadn't he? She wondered if this revelation would disrupt the illusion he had built around his own grief. "Every time I tried to reach out for comfort, it felt like you were miles away. Lost in your own sorrow," she continued, her pulse quickening. "I believe you have your reasons, but it has left scars on my heart too. The silence between us created an emotional chasm, and I worry that we've merely skimmed the surface of our pain without exploring it instead. We've let it fester." His eyes gleamed with a mixture of understanding and shame, and she knew then that she had opened a door. It wasn't just about sharing her own vulnerabilities. It was a call for him to engage with his own. Would he embrace the difficult truths, or retreat further into the shadows? "I didn't realize, Sarah," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I thought I had to be strong for you, that hiding my pain would protect you from more hurt." The honesty in his words stirred something within her. Here was a man, still grappling with the immense weight of their collective grief, willing to acknowledge his flaws. Perhaps they were both in need of healing, bound by the threads of their losses yet separated by the walls they built to shield themselves from further pain. Sarah took another breath, her resolve strengthening. Strength isn't about hiding. It's the recognition of our vulnerabilities that creates genuine connections. If we are to embark on this journey to honor Emma, we need to be raw and real. "I can't be the only one to expose my heart. I need to see you do it too." "No more walls," he stated, the resolve in his tone striking a chord deep within her. There was a flicker in his gaze, a hint of something commitment perhaps. The moment felt pivotal, one that could pivot their relationship away from the past, and towards a more truthful future. But as she felt hope swell within her, a gnawing fear lingered. Would they truly be able to support one another? Or would this endeavor open old wounds they were ill-prepared to face? "Let us promise each other," she said, leaning closer, "to be honest even when it hurts. We can be honest about our intentions, our memories, and even our failures. But we have to commit to this, Dad." He nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling between them like sacred ground. "I promise," he affirmed, the sincerity in his voice resonating with conviction. "I want to rebuild, to change the narrative not just for us but for others too." As they locked eyes, the atmosphere shifted once more, thick with the promise of transformation. They were no longer merely father and daughter shaped by loss. They were two souls striving for redemption. But just when relief threatened to envelop her, a thought pierced through. What if their honesty revealed more than either could handle? What if in shattering their silence, they unearthed demons better left buried? The thought loomed large as Sarah hesitated, uncertain of the next steps. All at once she realized they were standing on the brink of something monumental. But the depth of the journey ahead might bring truths they weren't prepared to confront. What if there are things neither of us wants to admit? She questioned, feeling the urgency of the moment. What new revelations lay in wait, hidden beneath years of suppression? The air thickened again, an unspoken understanding hanging between them as they both braced for whatever might come next. What else could surface in this fragile yet hopeful space, where vulnerability intertwined with uncertainty? The moment stretched, heavy with the anticipation of unearthing hidden truths. Sarah's gaze lingered on her father's face, searching for signs of dread or resolve. He looked small in that moment, a man burdened by years of unexpressed pain. Yet, there was also a fragile hope flickering there, an awakening perhaps. "I need to ask you something, Dad," she ventured, feeling the pulse of uncertainty quicken in her chest. "What did you feel after Emma's death? It seemed like you bore your grief alone, but surely it wasn't that simple." His brow furrowed, and for a second she thought he might retreat again, returning to the safety of silence. But the promise he made lingered in the air, urging him forward. "I felt lost," he admitted quietly, each word heavy with resentment and regret. "The world around me felt colorless. I thought if I held everything inside, if I stayed strong, I could protect you, make sure you didn't feel what I felt. But in doing so, I abandoned you in a way." She nodded, the weight of his admission settling in her core, an acknowledgement of the chasm that separated them. "It wasn't enough to shield me, Dad. I needed you. I wanted us to share the pain together." A flicker of recognition flashed within him, a man beginning to grasp the consequences of isolation. "I see that now," he murmured, his voice shaky. "I see it so clearly, but it's hard." The acknowledgement of their shared fractured experience snapped something within Sarah. She felt a surge of frustration, not just for him but for herself. "We can't keep running away from where we're hurting. This facade of being okay can't be sustained without real honesty," she said, each word sharpening her resolve. His eyes searched her face for a moment, as if trying to trace the path of her emotions. Then he swallowed hard. "I want this to change," he said, a kind of determination creeping into his tone. "But to do that, I need to tell you things I've never spoken about before, things I've buried. Then let us share," she encouraged, her voice steadied by new conviction. "What secrets do you carry that need to be said?" He hesitated, weighing the gravity of the unspoken. Was he prepared to cross this threshold? How would it redefine them, reshape the narrative they had lived with for years? All at once the dam burst within. "I blamed myself for Emma's death," he confessed, his voice a whisper, yet it thundered in the space surrounding them. "Every time I held her hand in the hospital, I was terrified of what I couldn't prevent. I should have done more, could have done more." Her heart raced. They were delving into darker waters than she anticipated, where shadows of guilt and sorrow could threaten to pull them under. Yet, beneath the pain, she felt glimmers of clarity. "You weren't a failure, Dad. You were one person with limitations. But by not involving me, you also robbed me of my own healing." The air grew thick again, the atmosphere laced with shared burdens and unacknowledged truths. His breathing hitched as he tucked a stray hair behind his ear, overcome. The realization was washing over him. Perhaps they could share this weight, could navigate through the agony and find peace again. "What else?" she pressed gently, aware that the gravity of this conversation might lead them to revelations yet untold. It was a question that hung unyielding. She could almost feel the tributaries of their past begin to unfurl, carrying all the regrets and barriers that had shaped them both. What other hidden feelings could emerge in this fragile exchange? As if standing on a precipice, they both seemed to realize together where this conversation might ultimately lead. The urgency of truth beckoned as memories loomed large. But would they find strength in releasing everything they had pent up? The room felt both a sanctuary and a battleground, as Sarah braced herself for the unfolding of their shared history, and the potential destruction or healing it might bring. Would her father find the courage to step deeper into the shadows alongside her, or would they both find themselves swallowed whole? Her heart raced with anticipation. The answers awaited them, just beyond the horizon of their confessions, and the next truth to surface could change everything. What other untold stories would spill forth as they navigated the treacherous waters of their honesty? He shifted in his seat, the weight of his unspoken words pressing heavily upon him. Sarah observed the myriad emotions flitting across her father's face, a tapestry woven with threads of despair, regret, and tentative hope. "There are things about Emma, about that time, that I've never spoken of," he began, a tremor marking the beginning of his disclosure. "Please," she urged, her heart pounding in anticipation. "I want to hear them." He swallowed hard. I buried myself in work after she died, convinced I could erase my guilt through productivity. I thought if I were successful enough, somehow it would make what happened less painful. The admission hung in the air, potent with realization. But in reality, I was just trying to outrun the truth. Every meeting I attended, every project I managed, only deepened my isolation. Feeling her own breath hitch, Sarah realized he was revealing more than she had dared hope. This wasn't just about Emma, it was about their fractured relationship and the profound disappointment they had both felt in each other. Dad, that's not how healing works. You know that, right? She watched as he flinched, the truth glimmering in her words. His gaze fell to the floor. I didn't want you to see me broken. I thought that by being the strong one, I could provide anything that resembled stability. My fear of failing you overshadowed everything. She leaned forward, propelled by a blend of compassion and frustration. But failing to be real made it worse. You were not just a father and a worker. You were a whole person with rights to your pain, your fear. I wanted us to navigate through that together. His eyes met hers, vibrant yet shadows still clung to him. I see that now. But I didn't realize it at the time. I was so caught up in my own despair that I neglected to see yours. A well of emotion surged within her, but she pushed through the hurt. What about the nights I cried myself to sleep, waiting for you to notice? I thought maybe you were the one person who could have comforted me. But instead I had to stifle my grief too. Her father's shoulders sagged as he absorbed her words, shame coating his features. You're right. In trying to protect you, I hurt you. Silence enveloped them, thick with intertwining feelings, pain, guilt, and an emerging resolve to confront their past. Sarah felt a cautious optimism. Could this be their turning point? The realization stirred something in her, a determination to not let their dynamic remain stagnant. What else do you feel you've left unsaid? She pressed, sensing that this was the moment to delve even deeper. He hesitated, visibly weighing the choice. I wanted to ask, what do you remember about Emma? I've only held on to my memories, fearing that if I opened up about her, I'd lose what little was left of her in me. The weight of the question landed heavily as Sarah wrestled with her conflicting desires. On one hand, she wanted to share her thoughts, to remember the sister she had adored. But there was a discomfort in revealing her own hurt. Would it only deepen the rift? I remember her laughter, she started cautiously, each word carefully chosen. She had a way of lighting up even the grayest days. But I also remember feeling invisible beside your grief. His expression softened, as if he could see her clearly for the first time. I didn't want to drown in sorrow with you. I thought I was protecting you by carrying it alone. But I see how wrong I was to keep us apart. In that moment, something shifted, an unbreakable bridge forming between their shared pain. They were there, finally willing to pull apart the layers of secrecy that had suffocated their connection for too long. As the conversation unfolded, Sarah felt her conviction solidify. She was reclaiming her voice, confronting not only her father but also the effects of their silence. And with this act came a newfound intensity of purpose. She would not only demand her share of healing, but also fight for the relationship they both desperately needed. Yet, just as her resolve began to crystallize, another thought flickered in the back of her mind. Would this moment of truth lead them to the healing they sought? Or would it expose deeper wounds that might irreparably change their fractured foundation? As the shadows of the past threatened to resurface, Sarah couldn't shake the growing anxiety of what might emerge next, the tempest waiting just beneath the surface of their conversation. What deeper truths lay hidden in the recesses of their hearts, waiting for the courage to be spoken? The air was thick with uncharted emotions as Sarah and her father sat across from each other, verging on a transformative breakthrough. Every confession could either be a step towards healing or a catalyst for further heartache. As the moments stretched out, Sarah knew the weight of this exchange could either bind or fracture them anew. Emma loved to run, she finally said, the words tumbling forth like a cascade of bottled memories. She was so full of life. I just wish you could have seen her the way I did. Not just through the lens of your grief. The vulnerability in her voice pierced through the tension, threading a connection between their shared sorrow and the life that had flickered out too soon. His expression shifted as he absorbed her words. I wish I could have too. I wish I could have participated in those joyful moments rather than being trapped in my own mind, thinking I was a burden. This was their moment, an opportunity to recalibrate their relationship, not around loss but around understanding and the possibility of restoring their familial bond. Dad, it's not too late, Sarah declared, feeling emboldened by her own strength. We can build a legacy that reflects Emma's spirit, one where we make meaningful changes for other children and families. He nodded slowly, contemplation washing over him like a wave. You're right. It's time we stopped letting Emma's memory be shrouded in our grief. We need to embrace her vibrancy instead. The resolve in his voice resonated with a clarity Sarah had longed to hear. With that realization, she saw not just the potential for their future, but the tangible steps they could take together. Let us plan outreach programs that honor children's health, she urged. We can highlight those voices that need to be heard, just like Emma's should have been. The faintest glimmer of hope ignited in her father's eyes. Together we can use our experiences for good. But it will take work, the kind of work we've been avoiding. The acknowledgement felt like the first crack in the shadowy walls they had built around their grief. Yes, let us launch the foundation in her name, make it a beacon of hope, Sarah said, excitement bubbling within her. We can start reaching out to experts, finding allies who believe in this cause, in Emma's light. Realization pulsed with every word as she spoke. Not only was she crafting a future for Emma's memory, but she was also reclaiming her own identity as they both stepped into the light of transformation, entwined in their newfound purpose. They spent hours mapping out their vision, letting ideas flow freely, and planning events that could draw attention to children's health issues. Names began to take shape: Emma's Light Foundation, which encapsulated everything they aimed to champion. But deep down, as she reveled in the blossoming hope, Sarah felt the need to confront yet another secret, one that threatened to overshadow their momentum. I need to ask you one last thing, Dad. How will you handle the legal battle over the inheritance? You need to be clear about your intentions. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, yet a newfound transparency carried through his demeanor. If this foundation is what you want, then I'll let go of my claim. The money isn't worth losing this bond again. Sarah's heart soared at his words. Relinquishing the claim was indeed a monumental step forward. That's the kind of commitment we need, she said, reassurance tide rising between them. Together we can prove that love can transcend even the deepest wounds. The mantle of responsibility shifted, and along with it, the opportunity to build something rich and fulfilling. In that moment Sarah felt lighter, her burdens of grief slowly yielding to purpose and resolve. Emma's legacy would not be confined to memories but made real through tangible action, advocating for a cause that honored her life while bringing forth opportunities for change. Outside, the world continued on, oblivious to the profound shift occurring within the walls of their relationship. They stood not just as father and daughter but as allies on a mission that transcended personal grief towards a greater good driven by love and action. Sarah could finally envision their path ahead, steady and determined. Their joint effort would indeed honor Emma, transforming sorrow into a movement of hope. With a very real plan unfolding, she prepped for the presentation of their foundation's launch, a moment that felt like the culmination of all they had overcome. And as they locked eyes, she sensed a defining truth taking form. While their past could not be erased, their future was rich with possibilities, ready to be built with intention and love. In this moment of clarity and renewed purpose, Sarah felt an authentic sense of personal growth, finally stepping into the power of leadership and advocacy. She discovered the strength to advocate not just for her daughter, but for all the children whose voices could carry on like Emma's the bright, beautiful future she was ready to fight for. With her father's newfound support, they were set to embark on a journey of transformation and healing, not only for themselves but for so many others. And so, with a heart full of purpose, Sarah breathed in the promise of a new beginning. Now this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful ending. Your support is crucial, and only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.